Surprised when activist judges seeking to impose their own liberal leanings upon the downtrodden denizens of our once green and pleasant land openly declare war on democracy, defying the will of the people in service of the judiciary's secret political agenda, it's a miracle that anything resembling justice is spat out of our ailing, failing legal system. Enemies of the people, the lot of them. If there's one thing you can be sure of, it is that the law, whatever it does not work for you. The likelihood is that you will have heard something of the cases and themes above over recent years, whether in the press, on social media, or folded into the rhetoric of an earnest politician. The complaints are familiar and recurring. Unfurl a newspaper or click on a web link, and the evidence is compelling. The law, as some angry blogger once said, is broken. It was me, in my first book, The Secret Barrister, Stories of the Law and How It's Broken. If you haven't read it yet, I suggest you do so. Then this self-referential jokette will make more sense, although it will probably be no funnier. Except, of course, that every legal detail in those stories is untrue. They are examples of what a marketing mogul with a keen eye for neologisms might term fake law, distortions of legal cases and judgments spun and reformed for mass consumption. They represent a phenomenon that is far from new, but which, in an age when an errant headline can reach 1 million Twitter users in a single baited click, is becoming broader in scope, longer in reach, and exponentially more difficult to counter. And the above myths, and the thousands like them, are what this book aims to address. For, while most of us can equip ourselves reasonably well to critically assess news stories or commentary in many walks of life, legal stories throw up particular obstacles. Law is inherently, and often unnecessarily, complex and alienating to a non-legal audience. Finding the answer to a straightforward question, such as, "What does the law say about my right to defend myself in my home?" is not simply a matter of going to a conveniently labelled statute online and reading what it says. For one, we churn out new laws quicker than the government can publish them. Unfortunately, and consequently, legislation.gov.uk, the official government website responsible for publishing freely accessible versions of the law, has not been up to date for decades. While there have been improvements in the last few years, the National Archives aimed to have all legislation updated by the end of 2020, at the time of writing, 2% of the statutes and statutory instruments, laws issued by ministers under powers granted by Acts of Parliament, on the website had outstanding effects marked on them. In other words, 1 in 50 of the laws on the official government website were wrong. The website boasts 6.5 million pages. That's a lot of inaccurate legislation lying in wait to trip up the casual browser. But this is only part of the issue. Unlike civil law jurisdictions, such as France, where the bulk of the country's law is codified, we have, since Henry II's declaration at the Assize of Clarendon in 1166, been faithful to the common law tradition, where the senior courts, today the High Court, Court of Appeal and Supreme Court, have the power to make law. Where a case involves an issue of interpretation or clarification of legislation passed by Parliament, our most senior judges will hand down judgments which have the effect of binding all lower courts, the doctrine of precedent. This means that if you wish to understand what a statute means, it is not enough to simply locate an up-to-date version. Once that quest is completed, you will need to know what further gloss has been coated over it by case law. And accessing case law, let alone interpreting and extracting the esoteric legal principles judicially passed within, presents similar difficulties. The official provider of free, up-to-date online case law is the British and Irish Legal